We move service in here so you can be closer to the cake when it comes out. It was either this or you fry inside the sanctuary. So, we're in here. Beneath the surface of today's gospel, a question pulsed quietly, insistent, refusing to be ignored. Who truly belongs? Jesus says, I am the gate. I am the good shepherd. He speaks of sheep who know his voice, not because they are forced, not because they are perfect, but because they are known. Let us turn our sight to an unlikely prophet in the sacred story, Babe. If you have seen it, you know the ape. Babe is not meant to belong. A pig out of place on a sheep farm, searching for his name and his purpose. The world has already drawn its lines. Pigs here, sheep here, dogs somewhere else. The system is rigid. The expectations are heavy. Babe refuses to bow to the mold pressed upon him. So I ask you, who among you dares to confess that we too are babes? And I'm not talking about Babe Ruth, in case you haven't picked that one up. Who here has felt the sting of not belonging, the suffocation of being pressed into a role that could never hold your soul? Who has stood at the crossroads where the world's demands collide with a quiet truth God has planted within? Who has walked silent, sometimes lonely road, searching for a purpose that the world cannot change? If we are honest, if we dare to look in the mirror without flinching, most of us have been Babe. What sets Babe apart is not just his searching, but the spirit with which he seeks a spirit in the world that cannot manufacture. He does not call or demand his way into belonging. He doesn't dominate. He does not raise his voice or harden his heart to prove his word. Instead, Babe listens with the ears of his heart, tuning himself to the music others ignore. He notices what others dismiss. He learns the rhythms that others trample underfoot. He takes time to know the sheep, not as problems to be managed, but as lives worthy of honor. There comes a moment when the sheepdog repeats the old gospel of power. Sheep are lesser. They must be driven, dominated, controlled. And Babe, small, unexpected, unassuming, refuses to swallow the lie. Not with anger, not with cruelty, but with a quiet, unwavering conviction that will not be moved. He will not kneel before a world that dares to declare some lives expendable. In that moment, Babe becomes a witness to something holy, something Christ-like. When we return to John 10, we see Jesus pushing back as well. He pushes back against the systems that divide, the voices that wound, the ways of being that shrink the soul until it forgets its own name. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, he says. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. Jesus is not a shepherd who corrals with fear. Jesus is not a gatekeeper who bars the way. Jesus is a gate that stands open, refusing to be locked. Jesus is a voice that calls us by name. Jesus is a shepherd who knows us, truly knows us. And here's the heart of it. Jesus does not sort us into boxes labeled worthy or unworthy. Not by our past, not by our mistakes, not by what others have said about us. Where the world sees failure, Jesus sees possibility. Where the world sees difference, Jesus sees belovedness. Where the world sees an outsider, Jesus whispers, I know your name. Babe, in his own humble way, steps into that same vision. He doesn't see the sheep as inferior. He doesn't see himself as disqualified. He shows up with kindness, with curiosity, with a care that refuses to be hardened by cynicism. And what happens? The farm begins to change. Barriers soften. Relationships shift. A new kind of community begins to take root. Not built on hierarchy, but on the holy ground of connection. Babe doesn't just find himself. He becomes a spark for transformation, igniting what others thought impossible. This is where the gospel stands before us and demands an answer. Following Jesus is never just about self-discovery. It is about how we show up in the world once we have remembered who we are. Will we be the ones who reinforce the divisions handed down to us? Or will we be the ones who gently, persistently, lovingly challenge them? Will we listen for the shepherd's voice even when it calls us beyond our comfort? Or will we echo the voices that declare ourselves to be less than beloved? Are we busy constructing gates that keep others out? Or will we dare to join the kingdom where the gate is flung open and no one is turned away? Today, this question becomes more theoretical. Because today, we welcome a new member into this community. That means something holy is unfolding among us. Not just for the one who joins, but for all of us. Because every time someone joins this family of faith, we are reminded this is not a closed circle. This is not a club for the chosen few. This is a flock that grows. This is a community shaped by grace. Not you, Chris, but you're close. This is a place where we are called not just to belong, but to become those who make belonging possible for others. So let me be clear about what that requires of us. It means we affirm, not merely tolerate. Not simply allow, but affirm the dignity, worth, and belovedness of every person who crosses this threshold. It means we reject the lie that some are more worthy than others. It means we take the call seriously to know one another, not on the surface, but in the depths where the true belonging is born. Jesus, like babe, took time to know the sheep, just like Jesus knows each of us, because belonging is never built on assumption. It is forged in the fire of relationship. And here is a deeper truth. The one we would rather not name, sometimes even here in the church, people still feel like babe, out of place, unseen, wondering if they truly belong. Still wondering, do I really fit here? Am I too different? Too broken? Too much? Not enough? And if that is you today, hear this with the full force of the gospel. Jesus does not see you as an outsider. Jesus does not measure you by the categories the world has handed you. Jesus calls you by name. You're already part of the flock, already counted among the beloved. You're already known. You're already loved. But the gospel refuses to stop here. Because once we hear that voice, once we dare to trust that we belong, we are sent out to become living echoes of that truth for others. See, this reminds me of a story of literally when my brother was young. My mom had apparently stopped going to church for a while. And he kept hearing the church bells. And his name is Raul. And he told my mom, you hear? God is calling me. Because in the church bells, he heard, "Ven, come, Raul," in Spanish. So, if a child can hear their name through different aspects of the church, where are you hearing your name? You're already part of the flock, already counted among the beloved. You're already known. You're already loved. The gospel refuses to stop it. Because once we hear that voice, once we dare to trust that we belong, we are sent out to become living echoes of that truth for others. To the people who notice, people who listen, people who refuse to accept the systems that diminish and discard. People who, like me, quietly but courageously declare with their lives, there's another way to be. At the end of the day, there's that simple, beautiful affirmation. That'll do, pig. That'll do. It's not flashy. It's not grand. But it is enough. And I wonder if, in some small way, that simple blessing echoes the voice of the shepherd. Not because we've been proven ourselves, not because we've earned it, but because we are already held in the arms of grace. That'll do, child. That'll do. So, as we move forward, as we welcome new life into this community, as we continue figuring out who we are and who we are becoming, may we listen for that voice. May we trust that we belong, and may we become that kind of people who make that belonging unmistakable to all who enter here. Because the Good Shepherd is calling. The gate is still open, and there is more than enough room in this flock for every single one of us.